Welcome to Exposure Therapy, and today my guest is Houman Katoozi, all the way from Sydney, Australia. Thanks for coming on today, Houman. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's my honor.
I've just recently, over the last couple of weeks, been playing around with an app called Glass for photography, and fallen in love with it. I'm a paid member now, and I absolutely love the community there. And that's where I discovered Houman and just the various work that he does. And I was really attracted to his minimal, high contrast street photography, and just really, really love it. And actually, what's really cool is you shoot on a dedicated, at least in some of the photos I looked at, you shoot on a dedicated monochrome camera.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
can you tell us how you kind of got into photography, and then what made you decide to dive in full tilt into black and white?
Black and white. Oh my gosh. I had a feeling you want to ask me this question. And where do I start? So, about 14 months ago, did I lose you or no?
No, no, I still got you. We're
Sorry.
just looking at your face now.
My favorite thing, look at my own face. Just kidding. So about 14 months ago, gosh, it was to a point where I had a camera that wasn't monochrome, it was a color camera. And it was hard to go and do the typical photos that I enjoy taking. So it was usually I would have woken up early in the morning, gone to Sydney Harbour, get the sunrise, get the Sydney Harbour Bridge, get the Opera House, just really the pretty sights of Sydney in the morning or during sunset at Bondi Beach or any beach that we'd go to. The challenge with that as a family man and someone who works full time is that it's really hard to put that time aside away from your family early in the morning. So I was carrying my camera with me in the city when I was out working. And I started to notice that I'm getting really, I guess, attracted to these lights and architecture and, like you said, kind of minimal scenarios. So I started to kind of play with that and just kind of gave up on the pretty photography stuff. And that's no offense to anyone. I think it's still beautiful to go and get sunrise and sunset photos. I think they're gorgeous.
Mhm.
Um, so then the challenge was my camera. I'm gonna complain, but it was a Fujifilm X-T4 with a equivalent of a 50 mil lens on there, full frame. Again, not a huge camera for me, considering that I had a work backpack on me and trying to carry that around with me. It just started to feel a little bit heavy and big for me. It was my 40th birthday was coming up as well. I was due to go to Iran, where I was born for the first time in uh, 26 years. So it was playing with this idea. I'm taking these photos and I'm taking them home, putting it on my computer, and I'm starting to notice there's a pattern around the muteness of the color. So there's not a lot of color in there because you're in the city. It's a lot of architectural shots with soft lighting. And I started kind of looking into black and white photography, and I came across some of the icons like Henry Cartier-Bresson,
Mm.
Ansel Adams, and really fell in love with black and white photography at that point. Now, before that, I was enjoyed it, but it wasn't really my gig. It wasn't that I really appreciate it. And then Leica marketing really chapped me in. I started to look at some of the Leica photographers out there, Alan Scheller, an English chap who is just brilliant with his photography. But we've got a couple of local ones as well. We've got, gosh, I hope I remember his name now. Knox Birdie, Canadian actually, but lives in Australia. Been here for a long time. Just a lovely human being, humble, brilliant photographer here. So if you get a chance, there's a video, a promotional, I guess, advert video he made with Leica, and the Leica Q2 monochrome. And then that was kind of like, again, the marketing bringing me in, going to the store, playing around with the camera, and then just kind of going, I think it's time. I think it's time for me to really fully take the leap of faith and get into black and white photography. Had a couple of friends who are photographers, and they're kind of going, "Are you sure you want to spend this much money on a camera that only shoots color?" And also, maybe it's just a fade. Maybe you're just going to go through this like 6 months of black and white, and then you snap back out of it again. I can't really pinpoint why I just said no. I just want to do this. It was scary, to be honest with you, buying a very expensive camera with a fixed lens that I can't interexchange. A focal length that I've never shot on before, 28 millimeter. And the first 3 months were quite challenging, but it's like a long story short, that's my journey into just going, it's time for me to change what I do as a photographer, as a hobbyist, and really start to take this a bit more seriously, develop a style, and build a brand around my photography.
How did being restricted to 28 millimeters and like I can shoot on primes. Like 50 is a good one. 50, we all like
Yeah.
50 because it's like what the eye sees, and also it's the cheapest lens you can get for any of the cameras. But what's it like being restricted to 28 millimeters?
At first, it was really scary. I'll admit it was really, really scary. I would, my visual kind of field of view is probably around the 50 mil. So when I look up and I see a scene, I see about a 50 mil point of view, which is, I think, pretty natural for most people. And when you pull up a 28, not only are you seeing 50, you're seeing everything else around you. So I'd say the first 3 to 4 months, it was a little bit frustrating because I'd pull the camera up to see a scene. And I'm like, hold on, that's not what my eyes saw. It took a few months for my eyes and my brain to kind of get used to that field of view. But I love it now. I can't imagine having an everyday carry camera, and not having a 28 mil on there, because some of the shots that I make are on the train. So I'm on a train or on a bus, or I'm in a very confined environment. So having a 50 mil would just absolutely limit me to a very small bit of what I'm seeing now. So yes, initially it was quite intimidating, quite frustrating at times, but I honestly credit that focal length to my current style of photography. Without it, I don't think I would have developed the style that I have today.
You mentioned earlier on when you're talking about gravitating to the black and white, but you appreciate things like sunsets, they're gorgeous.
Of course, yeah.
And when we got on, before we got on today talking, I was thinking about different landscape photographers, and I was thinking I'm colorblind, and I thought, black and white, I absolutely get. Color I struggle with for that reason. But to me, I think that there's times when color is important, and I thought, yeah, how would I shoot those landscapes or the sunsets or whatever in black and white? And then I think of guys like Ansel Adams or whoever that was limited to black and white, and how they still pulled off some pretty amazing landscapes. Can you speak to that? How that would work, like a black and white for landscape? I know maybe you don't do
Yeah.
landscape specifically.
I'll give you my perspective if that's okay. So I've tried to do landscape in black and white. So obviously, being in Sydney, we have access to some of the most beautiful beaches around the world. Humbly, if I may say that. And I'd go on a walk from Bondi Beach to Bronte and back, and I have my Q2 mono with me, and I'll take a few photos, and I come back home and I just look at them, and I have no desire for them, no love. In fact, I find it quite frustrating that they're in black and white, because nature for me, as a person, is meant to be experienced in color. And it's all is full beauty. And I'm quite envious of photographers who shoot black and white landscape. And on glass, there's a few of them that just have incredible black and white landscape photography that I actually comment and I just go, I'm envious of your work, because I cannot, for the life of me, create a landscape black and white photo that I enjoy personally. But I love your work. Your work is incredible. So I don't know what it is about me. Maybe because I enjoy making high contrast photos, and in nature, high contrast just doesn't make any sense. You need to have all the grayscale from the very white to the very darkest black in there. Where if you look at my photos, there's very little gray in there. There's a lot of blacks, a lot of whites, and very little gray in them. So I think that's potentially why I don't make good landscape black and white photos. But again, my personal preference, landscapes, just nature's beautiful. Nature is just stunning. And when you see it in color, as opposed to black and white, for me personally, it's just something else.
I'm not much of a gearhead myself, but I have been told that the with the new M11 monochrome, I think it
Yes.
is.
Yes.
And I was watching a YouTube video about the sensor difference between the monochrome camera and then just the regular M11, and they said that and again, true or not, I have no idea, but they're saying that the sacrifice that you get in the color makes up for in the dynamic range. Like I guess you get more of that nuance, more of that spectrum of gray, I guess,
Yes.
In the monochrome sensor. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely. So I did a lot of research. I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, before I decided to go with a black and white sensor. And some of the benefits to it is spot on. You get a slightly better, I think, on the Q2. I think it's an extra dynamic, one more step of dynamic range, or 1.5. So you get that bit more. Also, the other thing I love is the noise that you get from a black and white or from a monochrome sensor. It looks very film-like, just
Mhm.
natural. So if I shoot high ISO, or if I shoot low ISO with a quicker shutter speed, there is some noise left in the photo, and it just, to me, it looks beautiful. It looks natural. It looks like film. The noise you get from a color sensor is quite a bit different, in my opinion. And from the research that people have done online, I can't speak to the science behind it, but the photo comparisons that I've seen online, there's a noticeable difference. Q2 monochrome versus Q2, or M11 versus M11 monochrome. And you also get lower light capabilities because of that dynamic range. You get a pure, as you probably already know this, all camera sensors are black and white. And then the manufacturer goes and puts a layer on top of that to add the color filtering to the sensor. And that obviously reduces a little bit of your dynamic range, low light capability, but also the end result that is created by the camera is a little bit different too from the color. And nothing wrong with making a color photo and turning it in black and white.
Mhm.
There's some extra flexibility there from the tonal range that you get. But for me, I think one of the main reasons I wanted to have a monochrome camera is not to have the temptation of color. Again, when you're going from color to black and white exclusively, your eyes, your brain is really used to looking for color to tell a story. And I can, again, share that the first few months I'd be walking, from anyone who's watching this from Sydney, or had been to Sydney, you go to Milson's Point, and it's across from the Opera House in Sydney Harbour, and it's beautiful. You got the water, you've got nature, and I see a scene that was really beautiful, and I pull my camera up and I look through the viewfinder, and all I see is grayscale, right? And to me, that was a big frustration, going, I need to really train my brain to see things in black and white before I pull the camera up. So that was the other reason I ended up going, not from the science and from the photo quality, but also from the fact that I wanted to be able to force myself to see black and white.
So I guess that's what you're talking about when you hear people talk about the Canon color science or Nikon color science. That color science, that's whatever they've come up with to add in as that layer.
Exactly. Layering it
Overlay.
up, and the software um, reading the information that's coming through, because
Mm.
part of it is scientific guessing, because the sensor doesn't know exactly what color is coming through. There is, I believe, green, blue, and red dots, so to speak, covering the sensor. I mean, the light's coming through. Sometimes the sensor has to guess what that one layer is, and it just makes a guess. If you zoom in really, really deep into a photo, you might see that it's made some small mistakes there.
Right. Um, now, talking about like Canon and Nikon color science and stuff, you actually went from that, like you said, the XT4 to the Q2, and that seems like it's very different. Like over here, I'm used to hearing people have gone from like the Canon Rebels to the 5D Mark whatever, or they've been with Nikon, now they're in the Nikon mirrorless, and maybe the odd bird that does a Sony, but very rarely do I get the opportunity to speak to someone that actually has the mythical Leica, but then also went from Fuji to Leica. You kind of escaped the whole Canon Nikon,
Yeah.
you
Look,
know. Yeah,
I started. My very first camera was a Nikon. It was whatever the entry level, when I was 17, 18 years old, there was an entry level Nikon DSLR.
hmm,
And that's what I started shooting with. Then I switched to a Canon 7D a few years later. I loved the 7D. I thought it was an incredible camera to hold. The mini system was really easy, and I had a beautiful fast prime lens for it. And I took a lot of photos of our first child. So I have a lot of fond memories of Canon because of that. Um, After that, one of my colleagues got me into trying Fujifilm. And honestly, there is no way I would consider, if I wasn't shooting with a Leica and I still was shooting on Fuji, there's no way I'd go to a Sony, a Nikon, or a Canon. No offense to anyone who does shoot with them. I just find them to be workhorses. They're
hmm,
designed for a specific work stream, I guess, if that makes sense. What I'm looking for is a small package that's powerful, that's discreet, that can deliver a very specific use case for me. So no offense to anyone out there who's shooting with anything else, but I found the love for Fuji came from the analog feel of using the camera. And the love for Leica comes from the same thing. They're very analog cameras for the most part. Lots of small buttons to turn, the sound you get from turning the aperture ring and all that. It's just very old school. And it helps me simplify my shooting. It helps me slow down a little bit and really think about the scene. And this is gonna sound silly, but I feel like these cameras, like a Fuji or a Leica, they have a soul, they have a personality, and you get joy from using it. Where the Sonys and the Nikons and the Canons, they're incredible cameras again on their own, but they're workhorses. They're just a blunt instrument designed to do a specific job. That's my humble opinion. Hope I didn't offend anyone on that.
Yeah, right. No, it's interesting you say that, as a photographer, someone who's very visually inclined, that not even thinking about the end result of the image and what's in the camera, but the physical feel of it. It'd be so kinesthetic, and how all those like knobs and twisties and things that just make all the clicks and clacks can actually make the process of photography enjoyable, right? And you can be very immersive and meditative.
Yes, exactly.
And yeah, I can understand, obviously, with the Leica too, right? That form factor, it might be, I'm not even going to ask how much it is, but just the form factor, right? Very discreet, kind of small, even with there are ones with interchangeable lenses, right? But even those
Like the
lenses,
M1, yeah, the
Mm.
M body ones, you can get a different lens for them. But the Q2 or the Q2 mono or the Q3 that just came out right here, it's just a fixed lens, so I can't remove this. This is what I'm with. So that's to me, it's a bit of the freedom of the brain deciding to walk out of house with, and what do I take with? That's it. That's my only option. That's all I've got. So it simplifies again the process for me. My brain and my creativity is free to create with what I've got, as opposed to deciding, right? In our lives, not to digress too much, but we are, social media is pinging us, friends, family are calling us, texting. There's so much noise around your brain, and it's getting tired from micro decisions, from multitasking, where when I go to take photos or make photos, I want everything simplified. I just want to be able to just walk out with a camera and start shooting, and not have to make another decision going, do I go out with a 50? Do I go out with a 35? Do I take 2 more lenses with me? Because then while you're out and you're at a scene, you either make it work or you don't. If you try to reach for your bag to get the 50 mil out and put it on your camera, that moment's gone, right? So you make work whatever with you have in your hand.
I have a friend. He was actually one of the previous guests on the podcast, and he shoots Canon R5 with all the big expensive lenses, but he also shoots the Fuji X100V. And he said when it's work, the Canon comes out and does the job. He goes for the Fuji. He goes, that's for fun. Yeah, that's when it's for fun.
Yeah. For sure. That's the joy, right? A lot of professional photographers who do weddings or studio work may have a Sony for their pro work, but the moment they walk out of the studio, they're probably holding a Fuji or a Leica, just because it's the joy. Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prairie View Photo Tours. Prairie View Photo Tours invites photographers of all levels to book their all-inclusive, authentic Alberta adventure at pvphototours.com.
So let's take a look at some of your work here. Now, a quick question. Was all of this work shot on the Q2, or was it shot on different bodies?
Yeah, everything shot in the Q2 mono. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, starting off with this one right here. And this is in Iran, I'm guessing.
This is in Iran, yes. This is a very important photo to me. So at this point, I've only had my Q2 mono for probably a month, so I don't really know it that well. Everything's in automatic at this point, just because I didn't want to make a mistake while I was out. That's my father. And he wasn't aware I was taking this photo of him. We're in Shiraz, I believe, one of the oldest cities in the world. And just saw this moment of my dad, who I haven't seen at that point for about probably 3 years. They live in the States. I'm in Sydney. And I hadn't been home in Iran for 26 years. So quite an emotional journey back home after COVID and all that. So there's a lot of emotion involved in this photo. I kind of get emotional talking about it, but yeah, that's my dad. That's in Shiraz. And I just saw everything line up. I was behind him. I was admiring the view. Cameras on me. I see my dad. I think he was on his iPhone taking a photo, and I just thought I'll snap this really quick because everything just lined up really well.
Yeah, that's great. It was 20, let me try to get rid of this. There we go. 26 years since you went back to Iran.
Yeah.
You said it's 3 years since you saw your dad. So I guess did you go to meet him somewhere and then go over there, or did you guys meet in Iran?
Yeah, we met in Tehran, so that's where I was born. My parents are actually currently there as well, visiting. And I hadn't seen that side of my family in 26 years. We FaceTime, I call them, but the physical, obviously, seeing someone like my grandma, my only living grandparent, still alive, touch wood. Luckily, when I got there, it was her birthday. It was about a week before her birthday as well. So it was a very emotional trip for a lot of reasons. Part of the reason I ended up buying the Q2 Mono was it was my 40th birthday, but also I was going on this trip knowing that I wanted to have this one camera that doesn't get in the way, gets out of the way, and just lets me do what I want to do. So a very emotional trip. And I look forward to going back again and hopefully making more photos now that I've got some experience with this camera.
Awesome. All right. We got a couple here from Iran as well, but these are great. I love your architecture shots. These are fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The architecture in Iran is incredible. Obviously, if you haven't got a chance to go to Middle East, I would highly recommend it. It's just, people are just so lovely, and they're just willing to help and talk to you and get you to where you need to go. And this is a mosque in Iran. None of these shots, by the way, they're not planned. Like, I'm just out whenever the tour is picking us up, we're going out. So it's not like I'm setting up with the sun or just trying to plan around it. There's a lot of people on this shot, as you can see, but I just felt like it worked really well, giving you an idea of scale and the beauty of the mosque we were in.
Mm-hmm. I think that people there actually add to the photo rather than just having the archway there.
Yeah.
It definitely gives us some life.
Yep, another Middle East photo. This is from Dubai. Sorry, not Dubai. This is from, oh my gosh, I forget. The other big city in, oh my gosh, having a brain freeze here. In the Middle East. Let's just go with that. This is
Abu Dhabi is another one. Is that?
Thank you. Yes, yeah. Abu Dhabi. Thank you so much. That is I want to say the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi. Again, we were there with my wife's family, so it's a big trip. This wasn't a photography trip, but my camera is on me all the time. And so we're walking around this beautiful mosque, and I'm trying to absorb everything in because it's just the scale. The photo doesn't do it justice. And just trying to line things up as we're moving quickly through the mosque. And I ended up with this kind of sub-framing using the foreground architecture to frame the background with the lady taking a photo of the building. It was breathtaking.
Is that scaffolding up there? Like it's going under?
Yeah, scaffolding. I think it adds a little bit more to the photo.
Yeah. Great. Now, quick question for you. So having lived in, I think before we started recording, you mentioned you lived in the States for quite a while. You lived in Sydney for quite a while, and you lived in Iran for quite a while. So you have those kind of three mixes.
Yeah.
Is there a quality of your photos that changes based on where you're shooting?
If you look at most of my work, it's heavily reliant on light, geometry, and shadows. So I try to tell a story that is unique to kind of what I see. So yes, that will change. I mean, in Iran, you're going to see a lot of older architecture, a lot of people shots, a lot of old mosques that have been around. And in Sydney, you'll see our CBD or Central Business District or downtown, which is probably a more common term. People who are working, people who are walking around, people who are commuting to work and coming back. So it's just, I try to adapt to the environment and still share what I visually see.
How do you approach shooting people in a street setting? And I know in different places now, there's different rules in terms of what's allowed with street photography and including people. In different places, it's different. But what's your general approach? Like, do you kind of do that candid? Do you just catch them unawares?
Yeah. Look, the camera that I have is small enough. It's pretty easy to miss if you're not paying attention. also what you notice a lot in cities is people are really in their own world. Like, unfortunately or fortunately, the smartphone has made us
Yeah, that's it.
a little bit zone out. So I have a bit of a, maybe not a debate, but a discussion with some photographer friends because we all go, "Oh, I hate having someone's photo taken, but they're holding a phone in their hand." I don't like it either because it's just such a blunt piece of technology, right? But then we try to remember that, the photographers that we currently admire shot photos 30, 40, 50 years ago. And it's been timeless and we're experiencing what they froze in time back then.
Right.
So maybe for us, maybe in 30, 40 years, we'll look back into this era and think and feel the same way of going, someone's holding that iPhone or that Android phone or whatever they're holding in their hand will resonate with us differently in 2060, 2070 when we look back at this era of technology. So back then it was newspapers, people with hats, and today is people with iPhones in their hands. So a little bit different.
Oh, dude, yeah, like not even are we just always in it, but like they even have Pokemon Go was big a while ago, and they actually have one now called Coin Hunt World where you earn cryptocurrency by answering trivias, and it's like an overlay on the Google map, so you're literally in and on your phone in the real world, kind of like an augmented reality thing. And yeah, like that's the filter that we experience the world. Our news comes from there, our media comes from there, our music comes from there, our relationships come from there. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Do you do much photography with your cell phone?
Uh, Not anymore. I think when iPhone photography got really big, I did. I had an Instagram account that was only iPhone photography, and then I had my other account which was only digital photography with the camera. Uh, but I don't anymore, and part of the reason for that is I feel like the optics that you get in a camera is just again the mobile photography is growing. It's becoming better and better every year, right? You got better sensors, you've got software that just does crazy things. But for me, it's a tactile feel of using an actual camera, and the optics that you get from a camera is just day and night different to any phone app in the market at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. There's just so much difference that comes from the glass that you're using, and I just can't see, like, no matter how good the phones get, I just can't see this tiny little like contact lens size lens compete with what's available on the market.
Exactly.
You can
That's
hear
it.
me. Yeah.
I mean, it could change in the next 5, 10 years. We don't know. I mean, technology is just changing so quickly that we might have a smartphone that can just make beautiful, like incredible, authentic, real photos as opposed to what it is now, which is essentially it reads the scene and tries to think what it will look good and gives you a reproduction of that scene,
Mhm.
as opposed to a camera, which you're in control of everything. I know you can shoot in RAW, I know you can shoot in manual on an iPhone and a lot of phones out there, but I still prefer a physical camera in my hand.
Yeah, and there's something about me that still loves that 2x3 full frame crop, right? Like the phone
Sure.
does all these 19:6 or weird ones, and
Yeah.
Instagram. Actually, this is actually pretty funny because I was trying to do some research to complain about Instagram basically and their weird crops. They're supposed to be a photo sharing app. I'm like, why would they have the 4x5? And then I realized medium format's 4x5, which was like your Hasselblads or whatever. I'm like, okay, so it goes even, you know, I thought that the 2x3 full frame was king, but 4x5, those are the big ones.
I honestly, I say to friends that Instagram is not for photographers anymore. It hasn't been for probably about a year. It is a social media marketing platform. So I'm not saying it's bad. What I'm saying is, if you're like I was frustrated with Instagram a few months ago, don't be. Take advantage. Don't try to hack the algorithm or don't try to, leave the platform. I think it's silly to leave the platform because it is a huge platform. As a photographer, if you're trying to get your name out there
Mhm.
and you're not on that platform, I think you're missing out. But
Mhm.
I agree. I do not like that I have to add white borders to my photos to be able to keep my composition for Instagram. But what do you do?
Yeah, it's like fishing in a pond over there where there's no fish. Over here's the stocked pond, and you're like, I'm not catching anything, but it looks really nice over here.
Exactly.
All right. So there's a couple of these. These are, yeah,
Yeah.
again, minimal, high contrast. I love it. And it's that mix of, sorry, I'll just take this down for a second. It's that mix of street and fine photography or fine art photography. So where would you, like, I don't know if you draw a line, or where do they start to bleed into each other? When is it just street photography and when does it become a fine art piece?
Uh, this is a big debate, isn't it? Like, what's street photography? I mean, I have incredible friends that are photographers that for them, um, uh, John Esty, I don't know if you know who John Esty is a wonderful photographer in Sydney. His definition of street photography is if you're on the street and you're taking a photo, it's street photography, right? It could be of a bird, it could be of a building, it could be of a plant, but in his opinion, and I agree with him, it's street photography, right? But traditional street photography, from my understanding, is that kind of yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's just that street feel that you're in someone's face and you've got a story happening on the streets. Where most of my photos aren't that way. Most of my photos have some sort of architectural shot involved. There's something to scene that's very simple and very minimal, as opposed to street where, again, there are incredible photographers out there that just can go on a busy street and capture something that's just jaw-dropping. Where if I go when it's busy on the street, I struggle to make a good photo because for me, I'm trying to single out one subject to put against a big scene to give you a sense of scale, sense of the story. Where street photographers can be on a 35 mil and just walk up to your face and flash you with their flash, and just get a reaction from you. Again, all respect. I'm not judging at all. I think it's incredible art. Photography is so subjective, but I kind of sit in between what I would say is traditional street photography and what's fine art. So I'm somewhere in between there.
You're referencing Bruce Gilden there. He's when I was watching don't even remember, just one of those master classes by one of the photographers, and they're talking about Bruce Gilden in that style, right? Taking that actual flash and just going right into someone's face, click, and then off you go. It's I'm surprised that guy's still alive.
I've got a couple of friends here in Sydney who do the same thing, and honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't have that courage. I don't have that. I'm an introvert, so for me, I don't want to get in someone's face. I don't want to potentially have a debate or make someone upset. That's the worst case scenario. Like, you make someone feel like, what just happened to me? Like, why did I get flashed, right? So for me, I try to be as discreet as possible. So I do the shots of people's faces are usually from the hip, or I am just walking by and shooting them without bringing the camera all the way up and try to compose it properly, so to speak.
I was just gonna say that. I was thinking about that. When you're like a quick flash and run, you don't really have time to think about composition, and you just mentioned that. So how do you handle the I don't know, the topic of composition? How do you handle composing your photos when you're not really taking that time to sit and think about it? When you're just and you might not even be clicking from up here, like you're clicking from down here. So is there guesswork? How do you compose?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I'm lucky to shoot on 28 mil, right? 28 mil is
Oh
quite
yeah,
wide.
yeah.
In fact, a lot of people say the Q2/Q2 mono, it's closer to 24. So you've got even a wider a field of view to play with. So if you're shooting from the hip, it gives you a little bit of flexibility to kind of refix the image. So if it's at an angle, you can bring it back up. I don't like to crop my photos very much. Most of them are uncropped. But from a composing personally, I get into a bit of a flow. Like, if I'm out taking photos specifically, my focus is distraction free and get into a flow. It's meditation for me. And this is going to sound silly, but I don't remember some of the scenarios. Like, I've just gone into this brainwave. It's hit me. I've gone into it, just flying in the air, taking photos, feeling amazing, and coming out of it, and then just going, what happened? Like, what's actually happened? And I go home and import the photos, and there might be a couple of keepers, and I try to think about what was going through my mind, how I was composing it. I can't remember. I don't know. And I think part of that is your eyes, your brain's kind of trained to see what it likes. And when you get into the flow, you're just focused. You just trying to make a great photo, a great image to get home with. So you're not thinking about composing. you're just observing. You're living in that moment, and you're trying to capture it and freeze it. So I don't think about composing. I just go and shoot. And that just comes from looking at, I've got a book here, Ralph Gibson, one of my favorite photographers. Probably can't see it with that, but I look at a lot of photo books. I look at a lot of photography, and that's my way of training my brain and my eyes to just see a great composition without standing out there trying to compose something and kind of solving a problem. Because it is, right? Because if you're working a scene, you're essentially trying to solve a problem, which is, how do I capture a great photo from this scene? I've got the light coming in, I've got the structure, I've got some people walking in there. Now, how do I put all these elements together to make a great photo? And yeah, for me, it's just, I'm lucky enough that I've had enough time to observe other great photographers that my brain kind of knows what I like. So it just lets me create, one or two good images when I go out there. So
that was one piece of advice that I don't know, not a mentor, but the first kind of person that encouraged me in photography was a friend. It wasn't related to me, who was into photography and really educated me on some of like the past kind of greats. And she had said that, don't worry about all the, it's for education, learning, going to school or anything. She said, just look at the photography of some of the people, the other photographers that you admire, that you like, study the work, see what they do, and then go from there. And that was the best advice ever.
Absolutely. I think some of the best photographers out there are self-taught. And it's hard to create an original photo these days because everyone has got a camera. Everyone's out there taking photos. So the best advice, if someone's just starting out photography, find what you like out there as a photo, and find out who the photographer is, look at some of their work, and then try to replicate that work. And eventually, over time, that replication becomes your own style. So it's not identical to what TJ is making, but it's maybe a variation with your own kind of spin on it, right? And then you start to develop your own style. And I think that's one of the best ways to learn composition, is by just seeing what other great photographers have done before you.
Awesome. So minimal, architectural, street/fine art/ really awesome. Let's talk about this.
So my wife and I, with our 2-year-old and her brother and sister-in-law, were just walking in a shopping center, actually, in Dubai. And I've just looking around and going all these curves. I'm like, I love these curves. They're all going around. And I want to try to create something quite minimal. So a lot of the photos, I go out when I take photos, either exclusively to take photos. So I'm out for 2 or 3 hours taking photos, or I'm on the run. So I'm on a train heading to work, or on a lunch break, or grabbing a coffee, or on a holiday with family. So there's a lot of rush, and that second scene is my brain is hyperactive. It is really focused on being in the moment and seeing things that I may have not seen if I had more time. So I just saw this. I was walking by in this round area, and I'm like, oh, this looks incredible. So I took 3 or 4 photos. And this one was the best out of all of them, when the people are just kind of hanging over, and the body language is a bit more relaxed, and obviously all candid. So that's the story behind this one. Is just me in a mall with the family, walking through quickly and just putting the camera up, quickly composing without thinking, as I usually don't, and just snapping 3 or 4 photos. And this was the best one.
Amazing. And this one too. Same space?
Yes, same shopping center, just different angle. So I saw this light that was underneath it, and I just thought that's going to add an interesting flair to the story, and then we got that. Yeah.
I like that. It's like kind of shaped like a fish hook, which is fitting for a shopping center. Awesome.
It just shows to tell you, like, there's photos around this. I genuinely believe there is the opportunity to make amazing photos all around you. It's just that, are you in the right mindset? Are you in the moment? Do you have your camera on you? Without the lens cap on, the camera's turned on. Because if your camera's in your bag, and by the time your brain goes, I got to reach in my bag and bring it out and take the lens cap off, or put the 50 mil on as opposed to the 28, like, you've lost already. It's gone.
It's gone. Yeah, absolutely. Love this. Through glass, reflecting on glass. I don't know, but this is great.
So Okay, so most of my shots are on bright sunny days in Sydney, but what I was finding frustrating is on the days that I'm free, that I want to go out, it's overcast, so it's raining, and how do I manage that? So I started playing around with long exposure, and this isn't super long. This is
Oh,
probably maybe a quarter of a second. Or in a tunnel with a friend, and I was looking at this left side. I think it's an advert that lights up from the inside that
okay.
shows you ads. I don't think it was on at the time, if I remember correctly. And I just started to kind of point my camera towards it, trying to play around and see what I can make from it. And I saw this mom and two kids kind of walking in, and I had a slower shutter speed. So it just creates this mystical kind of alien feeling. And it was just fun. Yeah, I think 3 or 4 photos of the same scene. And this was my favorite.
That's great. Well, it's funny. Like I hear long exposure. I don't think quarter of a second, but I guess anything like, I don't know, what's that? Anything like half a second, I guess, is even a quarter of a second. At what point do we get to it's not a long exposure anymore? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah. Whatever creates blur emotion, right? For
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
I want to still give you a sense of, as an audience, knowing what I took a photo of. Like, I don't want to make it so blurry that your brain can't comprehend what you're looking at. So it just needs to be slightly on the abstract side, that it's unique and it's different. But as an audience, you still look at it and go, I know that's a woman. I know that's two children that are just walking by.
What if you don't mind me asking, what do you use for editing, and how much kind of editing typically do you do to a photo?
Not at all. I use Lightroom Creative Cloud, not the classic Lightroom, the cloud version. I do believe that every photo you take, as much as you can, in my opinion, just to be clear, needs to be made as much in the camera, and
Mm.
try to minimal the amount of time you spend in post. So if I end up looking at a photo and I'm spending more than 3 or 4 minutes on it, I know that it's a loss. I just need to move
Mm.
on. I usually up the contrast, the blacks, the whites a little bit in most of the photos. That's it. I've made that a preset in Lightroom. So when I import photos, I apply that to all the photos as a base, and then I play around with it after that just to see what looks better. Because sometimes you want to have white overpower the photo. There's a photo I don't think I've shared with you, but it's in an Apple store, and it's a staircase that goes up, and it's a very bright staircase. And I was waiting and hoping somebody would just walk at the top, because there's a lot of leading lines. And someone did. And I snapped it, 2 or 3 photos, got one that was exactly what I wanted it. But because it was a very white or bright staircase, the gentleman at the end was really dark. So I made him a little bit darker just to give you that extra contrast, and a bit of a sense of mystery to when you see it. You get that. If I hadn't done that, I think it would have been quite gray. So you want it, that
Mm.
contrast to me is really important as an audience. Like, I want to make photos that I love looking at, and I hope that other people do. So contrast to me is just really
Mm.
key.
Amazing. Yeah, you talk about scale too, right? That's another form of contrast. The difference in size between two things. You have your difference between your blacks and your whites, and then also I guess the contrast of ideas and such in photos. Like anything you can anytime you can juxtapose two opposing things, it makes really interesting photos.
It does for sure. Yeah. Ah,
And this one I saw is beautiful. It looks like it's like a little model or something. It doesn't even look like it's a real city. This is great. Sliver of
this
light.
is. I want to say this is important to me as a photo, because it's probably the first photo I made in Sydney with my Leica that made me feel like I was finally getting it. I was finally getting black and white photography. I was finally getting what my style was. This was the first photo that I made that was shot in manual. I was in control. Um, and it just, I'm like, I think I'm starting to get what my style is and what I like. So that's why I shared that one with you, is just because it's important to me. It's kind of that, as a photographer, you have these moments in your career where when you do something or something comes up that's important to you. That was one of those moments for me going, I think I've got this. I think I know what I like and what I want to make.
So terminology I think is important, and you said a number of times so far through the interview here that you made a photo when you make a photo versus take a photo, which is kind of the typical nomenclature for what you're doing. So how would you describe the differences between taking a photo and making a photo?
Um, I think it comes down to taking a photo is you're out without a purpose, that you're don't know what you're looking for on the streets. You just got your camera and you're out there and you're shooting, hoping to get something good. Making a photo is that you probably heard this term, the point of departure, right? You go out there with purpose. You have a particular agenda, and you know what you want to make, and you go and look for that, and you make that photo, and you come home. That's the difference to me. Is it's also the typical thing that we see is, again, no disrespect to anyone, but if you look at travel photos or you look at destinations that are important to travelers, Sydney Opera House, the Eiffel Tower, you could probably, think about a photo that's taken. It's probably going to be about the same area, and that's just the same photo over and over and over and over again by millions of people that has been taken, same exact spot. So you're not making a photo, you're taking a photo, and that can be repeated by millions of people. All they have to do is show up, put the phones up, push, everything's automatic, and it's done.
Yeah.
Where if you have an agenda, if you're looking for a story to tell, if you have purpose while you're out there, you might go to the Eiffel Tower, but you'll come home with a whole different photo, a whole different story that no one else has done before, or not a lot of people have done before, because it's really hard to make an original photo these days. So that's what I mean, is like when you make a photo, there's a point of departure, there's an agenda, there is something in your mind, a story you want to tell, where taking a photo is just pointing and shooting. And again, everything's so automatic these days. Even on any Canon, Nikon, they all have, everything's automatic, right? You can go out there and put everything automatic, point, shoot, and you're pretty much guaranteed to come home with a pretty good photo. Yeah, that's just my thoughts there.
Awesome. I'm with you though, in terms of like shooting as manual as you can, as I want to try to put as much control in the driver's seat as possible. I don't want to let the machine do it. I guess I've been tempted at times to play with aperture priority, but I haven't. I just stuck to manual, and I guess I suffer for it sometimes. But I don't know. I think in the long run, you're probably better off.
A long time ago, a friend of mine said to me, this is before I was shooting on this camera, a friend of mine said to me, this is somebody else was told him this. He said, professional photographers and amateurs, the main difference is the pros know what aperture does to a photo, and the amateurs don't. And I was confused. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like aperture, like it just gets more light in and less light in. That's all it is. And it wasn't until I started shooting everything in manual that I realized what a big part aperture plays in making a photo. So no, I'm not saying if you're shooting in aperture automatic, you're not a professional. I apologize if that's how it came across. But I'm just repeating what I heard from somebody else. Don't get
I didn't say it. That other guy did. Awesome. Excuse me. This is great too. Again, reflection shots, amazing.
This is on the train. I was leaving work. So my colleagues see me at work with my camera, which is, I've got a white strap, so it's quite noticeable. And they always ask me, like, why do you have your camera on you? Like, are you just out shooting? And my response is always this: you just never know when that image, that scene, that point of departure comes up. And if you don't have your camera on you without the cap on, you're going to miss out. So one of the things I do on purpose when I'm getting back home on a train, I sit near the window when I know light's going to be coming in. And I just hope and I manifest that someone will sit in front of me that's going to look interesting. They're going to do something interesting. And this gentleman, I just thought he looks charismatic. He had the black glasses on. He's got silver hair. And the sun was coming in from an angle and it was reflecting off the glass. I actually did quite a few photos of him. But this was probably my favorite one. Train had stopped at this point, and you could see his face in the glass. So it gives you that bit of, I can see the back of his head on this side, but I can see his face on this side, and the deep shadows on the right hand side again really bring your eyes into the middle of the photo to look at his expression, which I love this photo. It's one of my favorite ones I've taken.
How silent is the shutter on that Q2? It looks at, especially 28 millimeters. You look like you're pretty close behind him. So is he hearing like click, click, click the whole time, or is it's just washed out with what's
silent? Again, this is the thing. I can see if you can hear this.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's not too bad at all. Yeah.
So it's very quiet, and I think it depends on what settings I'm in. It can be completely digital, so almost no sound at all, and then sometimes it's doing their physical click, so you can hear a little bit of a difference. But it's really quiet, and again, quite small, quite
Is it
sweet.
mirrorless shutter or mirrorless camera?
It's a mirrorless camera, yes.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, I did not know that. That's very cool.
So this is an homage to Henry Cartier-Bresson. He's someone I love his photography, and he's got this famous photo in Paris where there's a staircase that leads down your eyes, and there's a cyclist going by. I'm sure you've seen that one.
Yeah.
This is my homage to him, just because I love his work. This is in Sydney on George Street, and I saw this cyclist coming towards my way. I had a lower shutter speed on automatically anyway, and I just quickly grabbed this one, slightly out of focus, which I actually think it adds to the story a little bit. Kind of gives you that feeling that I was in a bit of a rush, which I was. I just it's coming. I just got to get my settings right, and boom, got this. So that's the story behind this one.
He is kind of the granddaddy of street photographers, isn't he?
He is. When I started to look into black and white photography, his name was one of the first ones that kind of popped up, and I watched a few YouTube videos on him and looked at his work, and it's mesmerizing. Still, I mean, look at it today, still looks incredible.
Are you familiar with the work of Vivian Maier?
Of who, sorry?
Vivian Maier.
Vivian Maier. Vivian Maier. The name sounds familiar, but I can't pinpoint, unfortunately.
She was I can't remember what nationality she was, but she was in American street photographer essentially. But she wasn't really a photographer. She was a nanny by trade.
Okay.
And everywhere she went with her, like the kid she was taking care of, she'd bounce around from home to home to home. And she'd always have her Rolleiflex, so like the one that was down here that you're looking in. And she never developed any of her work. It just sat in rolls and boxes. And so she died. And I guess they had one of those storage unit auctions. And this guy named John Maloof goes and buys some of these storage units because he sees like a bunch of film in these boxes. He's like, I'm going to develop this film, scan it, see what's there. And discovered like one of the most prolific street photographers of all time, who's a genius, but you never knew because she never developed her stuff and just kept thousands upon thousands of rolls, just like in some storage unit.
First of all, that's a hell of a story. I've just linked up her photos. Her photos are incredible. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Now,
there's a documentary about her called Finding Vivian Maier, and it's like a good hour and a half, and it's a really good story. Yeah.
So that's she never developed her work. That's just, to me, I don't know about you, TJ, but like for me as an artist, I want others to see my work. So it's like not in an arrogant way, but just I want people to feel the same joy that I get from the art of photography, right? So I think part of what I love about making photos is I hope that it brings joy to other people's lives. They look at a photo and they're mesmerized by it, or they can appreciate it. Because I'm a consumer of photography. I love photography. I admire a lot of photographers out there, and I look at and love their work. So it's just shocking to me to think that someone as an artist would go and make such incredible photos and never go to develop, even just to learn to see, because that's the other part of why I like importing my photos, because I want to see how they ended up, right? When you look through the camera, you make a photo, or you take a photo at that moment, you're not really sure. Like it can look great in the moment, and then you bring it home, you put on a bigger screen, you're like, oh, maybe not that great, right? Or sometimes it's the other way around. You take a photo and you're just like, oh, that probably wasn't that great. Then you bring it home, like, oh my gosh, that's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So it's a learning process for me. I think photography it's an art that you can always learn from, but if you don't look at your own work and share it with others, you get their feedback. That's what I love Glass as well. Glass is I'll share photos that I'm unsure of sometimes. I'm like, there's something about this photo that I love, but there's something I don't. So I'm just going to put it out there and get the people's feedback and see what they say about it. Anyway, sorry to sidetrack there, but
no, that's good. No, that's great. No, I feel the same. And I can't even begin to to guess on why she wouldn't want to share them, but why she didn't. Maybe it was a matter of she didn't want to share it, or maybe it was a matter of, I'll get to it eventually. Maybe after my nanny years, I'll develop all this. Who knows what the reasons were, but I'm thankful that he found them anyways, for sure.
I'm thankful you shared this with me. I'm always looking, because again, it's an art that you can always learn. So I can't wait to hopefully she's got a book out there, or someone's made a book about her work, so I can go and look into that.
Yeah, you could definitely find. I mean, there's probably some books out there, but you could definitely find her online, and well, obviously posthumously, but you can find her work online, and yeah, just capturing that, like you said at the beginning, that street photography kind of captures some sort of story, some sort of happening. She's like the OG of that.
Incredible. I can't wait.
Another sliver of light, wonderful, so good. Talk to me about this.
This is almost nighttime in Sydney. It's sun setting in the city, and it's going over that side coming through. I think I was wrapping up work, and I was just like, I want to go out and see if I can make some photos before I head home. I had a little bit of free time before getting home, and I saw this light come through. It's a sliver of light, and I stood there for probably about maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And this gentleman just was walking through. He just had this kind of, I don't know, body language. You can see in the photo, he's a little bit, he seems lost. He seems like he's hoping for something. Or so I took this photo of him. Wasn't sure how it would turn out. I got home and I saw that it was somewhat silhouetted, and everything on him is quite dark, and he's got that spotlight and that look on him, but also that light fixture, that X thing in the back. It looks like the light's coming from that source as opposed to the top of the building. So that's why I thought it was an interesting photo. And I think what makes this photo for me is his expression. He just looks a bit lost, like it's just finished work. He's exhausted. He's tired. Maybe he's got something going on in his life. Yeah, that's my story with that one.
Yeah, even when you have people in your photos like this one, all those we've looked at, right? There's a real sense of, I don't know, not haunting, space, loneliness. There's kind of like I don't want to say emptiness or empty, but there's like you feel the space, like a Miles Davis solo. You feel the space. There's notes there, but you feel the air in between them.
Yeah, for sure. That's how I feel too.
All right.
Okay. I have to thank this lady. This is Anzac Day, just this year. So further recent. For anyone who's watching from Australia, they know what Anzac Day is. It's a public holiday here, not celebrating, I guess, maybe not the right word to use, but it's remembering the alliance between Australia, New Zealand, I think Turkey as well during World War II, if I'm not mistaken, getting my history mixed up here. I ended up going to the city that morning, even though, to be honest, weather forecast was supposed to be raining, overcast. My battery wasn't fully charged because I'm probably going to be there for half an hour. I'm not going to worry about this. I get into the city, and I had some photos already on my memory card, which is a very rookie mistake. So I've learned, no matter what, full battery, memory card empty, go from there. So I go out there, and this is happening. There's soldiers on the streets. Everyone's dressed up as they would. Lots of people. The light's incredible. The city looks gorgeous. This lady, she looks like she's from the 1920s, like the hat she's wearing, the outfit. And she stood there for me lovingly. She stood there for a good, I don't know, 10 to 15. So I went back to this scene multiple times. I was in the general area, so I was kind of working the scene, as you say. And I've got a few photos of her just leaning against that pole. There's a few different expressions, but I thought this was probably the best one. The light was hitting her spot on, and the pole, and everything else was a little bit more gray. I don't know, just something about this photo and everything that the men are wearing and the lady in the front is wearing. Everything's kind of timeless here already, so it doesn't feel like it was made. Now, Sydney, if you've been here, if you're in the CBD area, it is an older city, so the architecture is quite old as well. So I feel like this photo, there's not a whole lot besides some of the signage up on the right-hand side. It looks like it could have been made, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago. So there's a timelessness and elegance about this photo that I love. And that lady, I think, really, really makes it for me in this photo.
Well, yeah, too, right? Like she's like dressed, it's not all white, right? It's colorless, so we don't know what color, but it's a light color. So for the purpose of the photo, for the purpose of the photo, it's all white. And then they're in all, except for the accents, they're in all black, right? It's just that contrast there as well. That's great.
Thank you. For sure.
Man.
Yeah.
So yeah, shooting just solely in black and white must really, really help you see the slightest nuance in light, because you shoot in color and black and white, or you're shooting a color, then usually you'll edit it in black and white after if you think it'll look good that way, but you're always shooting in color. And so you're not necessarily always looking for light the same way, right? And yeah, it's giving yourself that restriction, I can see, makes you a better photographer for sure.
It helps you see things that you would have missed before, in my opinion. Like you'll start look for reflections. That's the one thing I never used to do when I was shooting in color, because reflections don't make a lot of sense in color. Well, you look at them in black and white. I've got some recent reflection shots that just adds a different layer to the story, because you've got multiple layers in your photo. You've got the glass, what's behind the glass, what the glass is reflecting, and potentially a subject in there as well. So it gives the audience a lot more to digest. Some photos are incredible. You look at them and you're done, right? You see the photo, you see a sunset, you go, oh, it's beautiful, that's gorgeous. And you may just go, all right, I'm done with that photo. Some of the photos you see of reflection, I believe it draws you in, because there's so many layers in the image that as an audience, you have to kind of slow down, right? Digital media again, right? We're bombarded by photos on Instagram, on Glass, on Vero, photos everywhere. Everyone's a photographer. So if you can create an image that makes the audience just slow down and actually really jump into the photo and really enjoy it for the depth that it's got, that's a great photo to me. Just slow you down, because there's a couple of friends I've got on Glass who do a lot of reflections. Phil, if you're watching this, I'm talking about you.
Yeah, Phil. Coming for you, Phil.
He's got incredible reflections that he shares on Glass, and it always makes me slow down, because there are so many elements that you have to kind of slow down and absorb all that in.
Wicked. How important, I guess, a photo, everyone says, a photo's got to contain a story. It tells a story. It's a single image that tells the whole story. Unless I guess you're doing like a photojournalism series where you have like a series of photos that could tell the story. But when we're talking about socials, we mentioned Glass, we talked about Instagram. I've been starting to get into Twitter a bit. You mentioned Vero. How important is it for the photo to tell the story without the supplemental caption? How much stock do you put in the caption?
I'm not good at marketing myself. I gotta admit, I'm that introvert artist that I just want to make art and I want people to enjoy it. That's all I want. And we're all time poor, right? I've got family, I've got a full-time job, but I don't put too much effort into a caption because I want the art to speak for itself. So like if you were on my website, try to buy a print, none of my prints have names, because it's not really important to me. The name doesn't make a difference. It's the art. Do you love it? Do you get some sort of emotional reaction when you look at that photo? Fantastic. My job is done. I'm finished. I don't have to try to entice you with my words. I'm trying to help you fall in love with something that I've made. That's it. So I try not to. I know for a little while with AI getting super popular, I'm like, all right, let's try this. Let's see if that helps get my photos to more people. But I just found that it was too much of an effort, because I have to go and explain what my photo is, and then AI comes back with something that's just not my personality. It's just not what I would usually do. So I try to keep things simple. If you look at my Instagram titles, they're all like either silly or just really short one-liners. That's it.
There's a certain genius to one-liners, though, right? Some of the best stand-up comics, one-liners.
That's right. Old Bond films as well.
That's right. Houman, so at the bottom of the screen, we've had running for this episode. For those of you, by the way, if you're just listening on an audio-only platform like Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or one of those ones, make sure you check this out on YouTube. Also on Spotify, there's video capability, but make sure you go back and check out this episode and other episodes where you can actually go and examine the photos as their photographers are talking about them. So make sure you do give yourself a chance to, if you enjoyed the audio version of this, to go check out the video as well. I think you're really missing out if you don't see these photos as well. But we have your website down there. We have your Instagram down there. Glass you mentioned. So where would you like to direct people to take a look at?
Wherever they're comfortable. I mean, it's entirely up to them. I try to interact with everyone. 'Cause on Instagram it's a little bit easier because you can message people.
Mm.
Glass is such a wonderful community. If anyone from Glass, any of them, any of the any of the CEOs or any of the founders are listening, I love your product. I keep telling you this. It's an incredible community to be part of. Honestly, Glass gave me life. 9 months ago, 12 months ago on Instagram was just punishing photographers for sharing photos. So I love the product. I think it's a beautiful app. They're not paying me for saying this. Is FYI, this is just my opinion. It's a beautiful UI. It's distraction free.
Mm.
Yes, you have to pay to use it, but I'd rather pay for a product that doesn't track me, that doesn't try to make money from me, besides the money I pay them every year to keep the product going. So if you haven't played with Glass before, go check it out. It's on Android, iOS, on the web, and it really gives the photographers a platform to share photos only. It's not algorithm based. It's a large canvas. If you want to enjoy my photos on social media, like for the size they are, check out Glass. If you want to be a bit more interactive and message me and talk about stuff, obviously Instagram got messaging, so it makes things a little bit easier. My website, you can email me. I'd love to talk to people when I've got time, because I feel like we got to be social, right? This is the nature of our business as artists. We have to, as much of an introvert that I am, I try to be as approachable and as talkative as I can. Obviously, I appreciate you giving me this time as well. So it's important to for me to connect to people that I don't know. So I appreciate you, TJ.
Well, no, I appreciate you, and I appreciate your work, and I appreciate my friend Jesse. By the way, Jesse, right? He's also on Glass. He introduced me to Glass, and now I'm an addict. For all the reasons you said, right? It's so much better. I wish they did have private messaging, but maybe one day.
That's the one thing that's missing, right? Because as I shared with you earlier, I don't know how much time, but I like to use Glass because I know there are a lot of photographers there. I want to get their opinion on a photo that I'm unsure of as an artist. I'm like, as I said earlier, like I've made this photo. I don't know if I love it. There's something that I love, but I'm not sure what it is. So I'll put it out there. I don't know if have you seen the photo? I've got a portrait of a girl behind a pole. One of it is she's looking at the camera, and the other one is she's looking away. That was the big heated kind of. I actually wrote a small blog on this on my website. So I got a lot of opinions on that on Glass. The people who like my work said that they didn't like the one of her looking directly at the camera. They said that's not what I'm known for, so to speak. And the one that she's looking away in a similar composition adds a bit more of a mystery. She's got a different body language, and they wanted that more. So that was really good to do that. But I would have probably done that in a next to each other kind of here's the first photo, here's the second photo, or let me ping you directly, TJ, because hey, you were very opinionated about this photo. Here's the second version of that. Did you find it?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Did you see it?
There it is. Yes. That's it. Perfect. So this is the one where she's looking away. It seemed like most people preferred, I think it was actually half and half. Sorry. It was half and half. Half of people appreciated this one because I'm on my phone, I'm a little bit lost, I'm not sure where I'm going, to the other one, probably a little bit earlier, that one right there. This is exactly the moment she saw me with my camera. So again, 28 millimeter, I was fairly close to her. And that moment she saw me pointing my camera at her, and then she quickly turned away. So mixed reactions. And this was one of I love Glass because I can just be raw, be humble, and just go, guys, head me up. Just let me know what you think. I've got no ego. I want to hear what your thoughts are when I'm lost. So help me out here. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a really, really great community so far. So everybody listening, they're not a sponsor of the podcast, nothing like that. They're not paying. In fact, we're both paying them to use the app, but it's that good. So you guys got to go check it out. All right, Houman, I really appreciate you jumping on with me today. Again, love your work, and I'm just excited to follow you along and see what you keep shooting, and to catch up with you again in the future.
I love that, TJ. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. You have a great day. We'll talk soon.
You too. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.